Welcome back, Brooklyn Nets fans, MTN Nets podcast, reacting to another pretty pitiful loss by our Brooklyn Nets. They lose in Detroit, and they need every game they can get at this point. And they had two games that one of them I will say was a layup. They should have won that game every single time. I believe they were 9.5 point favorites. That was the game Monday versus Memphis. Their best player is Luke Kennard these days, so yeah. And then tonight, they play Detroit, who's a better team, but the Nets were still favored to win by, I think, 2.5 tonight. There are some injuries. Cam Johnson's out. Dayron's out. Ben Simmons is out for the year. We'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, look, the Nets had a real golden opportunity this week to really gain some ground on the Atlanta Hawks, who are now 3.5 games, I believe, ahead of the Nets for that final play-in spot. So I think it's over. I think the Nets' chances at a playoff spot this year are done for. This was that final nail in the coffin loss for this team. And, truthfully, if you can't win games like this against teams like Memphis with the injuries they have and a team like Detroit, and to the Nets' credit, they haven't lost in Detroit in like 6 years, they said. So, I mean, that's good. But they needed this game, and they let it go. I mean, they got down by a lot early. It was like 24-8 in the first quarter. It was ugly. They started Dennis Smith Jr. for God knows what reason. I don't want to, make this a whole, Kevin Ollie thing, but what the hell is that starting lineup? Like, you're putting Dennis Smith Jr. next to Dennis Schroeder and thinking that's going to work? Like why? I don't understand why this team is so against starting Lonnie Walker. And to Kevin Ollie's credit, I do believe that Lonnie Walker started the second half, but I don't know. I just don't know how you went into that game thinking that starting lineup was going to work. I mean, literally everyone I saw on Twitter was like, what are they doing here? Like, not one person had a positive thing to say about that starting lineup. So maybe it was a matchup thing they saw. Maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe they were doing Dennis Smith Jr. a favor for playing hard lately and playing well the last couple games. I don't know. But the goal should be to win games. So I don't know what we're doing here. But anyway, as I was getting to, they had a real golden opportunity. So they won at Memphis last Monday, lose to Orlando the next day, which, back-to-back tough team. But they win versus Atlanta back-to-back. Those were big wins. That got them down by, I think, 2 games in the playoff race, or the 10-seed race, I should say. I mean, it's crazy that 10 teams, make the playoffs technically. I kind of like it. I kind of don't, because I know, the gap between 8 and 9 is so large. So at least it kind of keeps fan bases like us more interested, but at the same time, it's kind of stupid. Anyway, so when they beat Atlanta in the back-to-back games, you're thinking hey, we're 2 games back. We have an easy schedule. This is possible. And they go on to lose the game versus Memphis on Monday, which was just, I think it's probably a top 2 worst Nets loss of the year. Probably number 1, I would say. It was bad. It was a very bad loss given the circumstances and how much they needed that game. But then they bounced back on Tuesday and they beat Philadelphia. It wasn't pretty, but they beat them in the end. What's his name? DFS hit a big 3 in that game to ice things, and it was a pretty good win. It wasn't great. I mean, there was no Tyrese Maxey, there was no Joel Embiid. So yeah, it wasn't the prettiest win, but a win nonetheless, and it got them back to 12 games under 500. And you go into tonight, and if let's say they had won on Monday versus Memphis, right? That would have been a 4-game winning streak going into tonight, and they would have won 5 of their past 6 games. So that loss on Monday, it hurts, but they bounce back on Tuesday, get a win, give them credit, and they come out tonight and didn't even look prepared in the first quarter. I mean, the defense wasn't great in the first quarter. And the offense, don't even get me started. It was putrid. I understand there's no great scorers on this team. I mean, arguably with Cam Thomas out, our best natural scorer is Lonnie Walker at this point, and Lonnie Walker plays on a vet minimum right now. So what are we doing here? But By the way, bring back Lonnie. I know he gets hurt sometimes, but like that is a guy I can take as a sixth man for the next 4 or 5 years. Like I like Lonnie Walker. Bring him back. Anyway, they scored. I think I made a tweet because I know every time the Nets score, they say on the Nets broadcast that the first Nets basket was brought to you by Hyundai, and I tweeted something like it's 4 minutes into the game and I have not heard Ian Eagle mention anything about Hyundai. It's like they went so long without scoring and they finally got on the board with like 7:30 left in the first quarter, but like that's just crazy. Like what are we doing here? And they bring in Lonnie Walker pretty quickly, who should have been starting in the first place, as I mentioned before. But they came back. The Nets took the lead. I think they were up by 5 or 7 at one point in the third quarter. Like I give them credit. They were down 24-8. They could have just laid there and died, but they came back. They were playing good defense, and Dennis Schroeder had an amazing third quarter, and things were looking okay. But in typical Nets fashion, they kind of broke down, and they gave the game away in the end. So we'll get to the stats and whatnot. I might talk about some big picture stuff towards the end with Sean Marks, because I think today, with obviously if you haven't heard, Ben Simmons is done for the year. I mentioned that. Stupid volume playing. But yeah, Ben Simmons done for the year. Same back nerve impingement thing. Whatever at this point. Like I don't care. I feel bad for him once again. Like I on a human level, I feel bad for Ben Simmons, but just for the Nets, it's such a disaster. It really is. Everything they do is a disaster, this team. Every big decision they've made in the last 2-3 years is just nothing goes right. But yeah, Schroeder was 12 of 17 with 31 points. He had a very, very bad missed layup at the end. He went for one of those D'Angelo Russell floaters with the game on the line down by 4. And by D'Angelo Russell floater, I mean a floater that like hits the roof. Like, you throw it as high as you can. He tried one of those, airballed it. Maybe it was like a pass for Claxton. I don't know. But in that situation, you have to make sure if you're going for the 2, you have to make sure you can make it. And he went for a layup in traffic, and he didn't even hit the rim. So that was the one bad part about Schroeder. He also had a dumb turnover at one point, too. But, like, aside from those 2 plays, he was tremendous tonight. But Schroeder, yeah, 31 points. I want to have the Mikal Bridges conversation, who played 43 minutes? Wow. All right. Well, Mikal Bridges played 43 minutes tonight, guys. That's pretty freaking insane. But I wanted to get to Mikal Bridges, as I just mentioned. Doug Norrie, who does the Locked On Nets podcast, he tweeted Mikal Bridges' stats since February 1st. It is March 7th, so over a month of sample size. 18.4 points per game. That's 61st in the NBA for a guard, right? Yeah. He puts G 61st. Maybe that's... Oh, no, that's probably game, not guard. I'm stupid. But yeah, 61st in the NBA, 18.4 points per game. Horrible. 16.3 field goal attempts per game. 37th. Okay, so obviously the field goal attempts are there. The points per game is not matching. And he is 25th in minutes at 35.6 minutes per game. Stop with the volume. Jeez. I'm just going to put this on mute, my computer. Anyway, so yeah, obviously Mikal Bridges has been not efficient, and aside from that Hawks game where he randomly had like 38 points the other day, he has been pretty bad. I hate to say it, but he's been bad the past month. I'm going through like the game log now, and it's just, there's nothing pretty here. Like the entire month of February, he wasn't that impressive. He, so far in March, aside from, once again, that game on March 2nd versus the Hawks, he has not been good. He's had 14 points, 15 points, and 13 points his past 3 games, shooting 28%, 33%, and 36%. I mean, it just ain't good enough. And you look at his February numbers, 17 points per game. He shot 40% that month, which, like, it ain't good enough either. Like, the guy's almost in the 30%. Like, that's bad. So, it's just, I feel bad for Mikal Bridges. I'm not one of these people that's like, trying to hate on the guy too much, but it is something we have to bring up because I feel like Mikal, based on what he showed last year, has been disappointing. I have to say, like last year he was a guy scoring like 25 a game or something, and he had some great performances, but this year it has not been consistent, and he might still be playing through the hand injury, which is something that I at least want to give attention to and try to be fair. But at the same time, I mean, he's out there, he's playing, and it's just not good enough. And he's playing a lot of minutes. His minutes the past 4 games has been 39, 39, 38, and 43 tonight. I mean, Kevin Ollie, geez, give the man a break. He's looking like Tom Thibodeau out here. Yeah, Mikal Bridges, disappointing lately. And I feel like if you're really trying to compete for a championship, he probably can't even be your number 2 guy. I think he's really a number 3 guy. I got to be honest. You know, I said this over the summer. I really did not expect Mikal to get much better than what he showed the second half of last year when he made his, Nets debut and played here for a couple months. I thought that was like the peak of what we're going to see from him, and people expected a bit more. Not everybody, but some people expected him to take his game to another level. I thought that was a bit unrealistic, so I did say, like, yeah, I don't think he's getting much better. If anything, he might regress a little bit. And it's not even like a little bit. Like, he's regressed a good amount. Like, it's too much. It's to the point where it's concerning. So, I don't think you're going to compete for a championship if he's your third, or if he's your second guy. If he's your third guy, you're fine. I think Mikal is a really good number 3. But if he's your number 2, you better have a number 1 like Jokic or Giannis or like a top 3 guy. Like you can't build a team of Donovan Mitchell as the 1 and then put Mikal at the 2 and think you're winning anything or getting past round 2. Like you're just not. So that's the concerning part if they go in that direction. But after what I've seen lately and just the direction of this team and Sean Marks, who, as I was getting to before, Sean Marks was under a microscope today because of the Ben Simmons news, right? Ben Simmons is shut down for the year, as I mentioned, and I'm trying to see how many games he's played, like the number's out there somewhere. But Ben has missed, X amount of games and X amount of possible games. There was a great chart before. Here it is. There was a great chart of like all the games he missed, and it's like, I'll just put it in the video. If you're watching the video, you'll see it, but it's a great chart of Ben Simmons is like possible games he could have played the past 3 seasons, and the games he doesn't play, they put a red X through his face, and then the games he did play, they circled him in green. Let's just say there's a lot more red on this page than green. Right, last season I think he played like 42 games or something, or 46, whatever it was. He played something in the 40s, I think. And that's solid, coming off back surgery after like 5 months, it's solid. But obviously, if you watched last year, Ben Simmons was never healthy. I'm trying to look up Ben Simmons games. I mean, I'll find the numbers for you guys. But it's just been so disappointing what he's been. And I saw the highlight video today of Ben Simmons in Philly and how good he was back then. And it's just crazy what he used to be. Even without a jump shot. Like, he couldn't shoot, but he was still so good and so dominant. So here it is. In 2022, I mean, it's 2021/22, but you get it. In that season, he played no games. Of course, that was the year he purposely sat out for the Sixers, got traded to Brooklyn. The plan was to play him in a couple weeks after the Harden trade. He never played. Guy had a back injury. They dragged it on. They told us during the freaking Boston series in Game 3 he's going to play. He never played. So the next year, it was 42. Last season in 2023, he played in 42 games. And I think it was a couple games after the Durant and Irving trades, he was done for the year. Like, I think he played like 1 or 2 games with Mikal Bridges, and after that he was done. I think his last game was versus the Heat that year in February of last year. So he played 42 games, a little over half the season. We'll give him that. Last season. But this season in 2024, he's played 15 games, and it's going to be 15 out of 82 because he's done for the year. So 57 total games in the last 3 seasons for Ben Simmons. He's made $106 million. What a life, So yeah, I mean, it's just a disaster of a trade. And as I mentioned, Sean Marks is under a microscope for good reason. I try to be fair with Sean Marks. I try to be fair with everybody. But I just don't know how this man can have a job after this year. Like, I get it. Maybe you don't fire him mid-season, but if they keep him beyond this year, it's just a bad look at this point. Like, I don't know what they see in Sean Marks, and let's be honest. Sean Marks, he's won one playoff series in 8 seasons here. His team has been swept like 3 or 4 times. And aside from the fact that Kyrie Irving grew up a Nets fan and brought Kevin Durant with him, I mean, like, that's kind of lucky in itself. Like, I give Sean Marks credit for at least making the Nets an attractive location for those guys to want to come here, because if they were still like a 20-win team, they're probably not coming here. So I give Sean Marks credit for building us up to a 42-win team. But the whole, like, getting 7 and 11 and bringing them to Brooklyn, I feel like that's kind of like, you just got lucky in that case. Yeah, Kyrie grew up a Nets fan. He happened to be a free agent. So did another great player, and they came here together. And then you had the assets to trade for a disgruntled star in Houston, and then he stayed here for 13 months, and then he was gone. It's over now, but the way the Nets handled the personalities of those 3 superstars was terrible. And I think that does start with Sean Marks and, of course, Joe Tsai, the owner. Like, you can blame those guys all you want. I know, like, the vaccine was out of their hands for the most part. I still think maybe Tsai could have done more about it, but whatever. And then you had the injuries in that Bucks series where, if I said this last video, like, I think if just 2 of the big 3 stayed healthy, they'd probably win the finals that year. So it's hard to, like, pin everything on Sean Marks, because there was bad luck. There really was, a lot of it. But the inability to handle the 3 personalities is a bad look as well, because they knew what they were getting into, right? It wasn't just like Kyrie went to Brooklyn and then he became, I don't want to say a headache. I do like Kyrie more than the average person, and I think sometimes he's, kind of treated unfairly. But you knew what you were getting into once again. You knew he was going to miss games at times, sometimes for injury, sometimes for random reasons. And Durant, you knew you were getting him off a torn Achilles at 31 years old. Like, you knew you were getting into, a situation that was a bit dicey. And then when you got Harden, like, you knew what Harden was. Everybody knew in Houston he was a guy who is an incredible scorer, but when he gets to the playoffs, he comes up short just about every time. And the personality as well. Like, I think Harden has shown, like, he literally he spent 9 years in Houston, 8-9 years, whatever it was, and literally sat at the podium. This was after his last game as a Rocket, and just sat at the podium and basically just announced, like, yeah, I've done everything I could here. I'm gone, and just quit on the team. And he showed up fat too. Showed up very fat that year. So he's showing you before, like, yeah, look, he's not afraid to go out with no dignity. He's done it before, right? And then he comes to Brooklyn thinking that, we're thinking things might be different this time, and they weren't, So the whole situation is just terrible. But I do think Sean Marks deserves some blame for how that went. I really do. Like, he knew what he was getting into. As I said, a lot of stuff was out of their control, but you still knew the 3 personalities you were taking on, and it went about as poorly as it could. But anyway, I don't know how he survives after this year. I really hope he doesn't. I'm ready for a new voice. I saw the Jeff Peterson interview with Woj. I listened to that podcast this morning, or I think yesterday. I forget when it was. But it kind of makes me sad. I feel like Jeff Peterson would have been a nice GM to have here, but, he's in Charlotte now, and we missed that opportunity, so it is what it is. But the Nets have a real shot here this offseason to really just completely start fresh, which is something I think they need, and I'm sure a lot of Nets fans watching this would agree. They're just not going anywhere with this core. And once again, I just don't think you're going to win anything with Mikal Bridges as your number 2 guy. I just don't see it. I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope they get Mitchell and they win 60 games next year and I look like a fool, but I'm trying to be honest. Like, I just don't think you're going to win anything with that guy as your second option. So, I don't know. If it's me, I'm trading him. I might trade Claxton if I get the right package. It'd have to be a sign and trade, obviously, because he's a freaking unrestricted free agent. But I'm looking to trade any valuable asset that I can get stuff for. And even Dorian Finney-Smith, who, at one point the Nets could have had 2 first-round picks for, but they held on to him too long, which is another Sean Marks issue. Sean Marks will hold on to these guys too long and wait for their value to go down and then try to trade them, which is not the way you should be GMing, but that's just how he's been doing it. So yeah, in the offseason, I'm looking to move off guys, get very young. Like, I don't consider 27 young. Like, I don't consider Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson young, and I'm 27 myself, so I'm not even like biased here. Like, I would like to think I'm young, but if I was playing in the NBA, I'd consider myself right in the middle of my career, like right in the middle of my prime. I don't think it's very young. So you have guys that are in the middle of their prime, but this team is playing for nothing. So these years off Mikal Bridges' contract, they're just wasted years at this point. Like, a contract that when you got it was looked at as one of the most valuable contracts in the NBA is no longer going to be that by the time you get to next summer, because he'll have 1 year left on his deal. And at that point, what are you doing? So I think this offseason you have to really make a decision. Like, I don't think the Nets can keep sitting on their hands. There are people that say, like, hey, the Nets want to not spend too much in this offseason because they don't want to be in that repeater tax, which I think it's crazy how much these guys get taxed, these owners. Joe Tsai at one point showed the ability to pay when the Nets had the big 3 going here, but this team obviously is not worth paying extra luxury tax for. But I think, like, it's like $1 is worth $4 or something when you're over that luxury tax. Like, it's a crazy amount. So I do think they want to stay under that line. So if they're going to go star hunting this offseason, I don't know how they're going to do it. Like, they're going to have to unload Ben Simmons' contract somewhere. They may have to unload Cam Johnson. Like, they're going to have to get off money if they want to do this. Like, that's the tricky part about everything here. So it depends if they're more interested in staying under that luxury tax or if they're more interested in building a team that can, compete for, I don't want to say a title because that's unrealistic, but compete for, one of the top 5 spots in the Eastern Conference. I'll put those expectations out there. So it depends what they want to do. But I think the best thing to do if you're this team right now is just rebuild. Trade Mikal Bridges to a contender. The offer apparently was out there for Jalen Green. Maybe Jalen Green's not good. Maybe he's not. He's had games where he looks fantastic, and he's 22, freak athlete. Like, I don't mind it. I think him and Cam Thomas is definitely not the best fit. But it's not like Mikal Bridges is playing much defense himself. I mean, if you really watch Mikal Bridges on defense, it ain't pretty. Like, he came over here as advertised as a really good defender, and I think at one point was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, I think. Maybe. I forget. Wow, Anthony Edwards had a very ugly fall at the end of that game. Wow. Looked like he broke his arm. He got lucky. Anyway, I forget what I was saying, but yeah, the rumored report was the Nets were getting Jalen Green and most of their picks back from the Harden trade. So maybe not all of them. I think there's 3 left. So maybe they would have gotten 2, which I'm fine with. Like, I'll take Jalen Green and 2 first and give you Mikal Bridges and call it a day. Like, I'm fine with that. But because it's not like, I don't look at that as an anti-Mikal Bridges take. I look at that as like Jalen Green is 5 years younger and I think has a higher ceiling. And you're getting 2 of your own first-round picks back. Excuse me. So I think, to me, it makes the most sense just to do that because you're not going anywhere with this core. I think the Nets really had a plan this year of, like, just being, like, around 40 wins and being, like, the 7 or 8 seed and getting in the playoffs, but that wasn't it. They're falling very, very short of that. They're 25-38. So they've had some ugly losses, and I don't see it getting much better. I don't. Some other stats tonight. DFS played pretty well. He was 3 of 7 from 3, 5 of 9, 13 points. I liked his game tonight. He was good. 3 steals, 1 block. Mikal Bridges, I went over. He was 4 of 11, 13 points. Not impressed. 3 turnovers as well. Nick Claxton had a pretty nice game. He had a technical too, I remember, but 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 15 points, a double-double. So not like an elite Claxton game, but it was pretty good. He had some nice blocks in the first half, had 3 total. Schroeder, I mentioned, was 12 of 17. He had 31 points. had 3 turnovers, and one of those at the end was very ugly and pretty much not lost them the game, but was the play that really made you think like, yeah, they lost this game. So DSJ, Dennis Smith Jr., he had 9 points, 4 steals, wow, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. He was 1 of 4 from 3. Trenton Watford got some minutes. I like that. 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 of 4, 2 of 2 at the line. Did have back-to-back travels, which is 2 turnovers for him. I think one of those was definitely a travel, but the other one, I thought he kept his pivot foot down, but maybe not. I don't know. Jalen Wilson, not a good night. I feel like the past couple games he's been terrible. I want to see his stats lately. Yeah, Jalen Wilson, he has not been that great lately. I mean, I think he was fine versus Memphis the other night, but the last 2 games he has just not looked good. But guy's a rookie and second-round pick, so can't have the expectations too high, but he's been a positive for the most part. Noah Clowney played 10 minutes. That was good to see. Keep that going. He didn't have any points or any shot attempts, but he had some good hustle plays. He had 2 steals in this game. He had 2 rebounds, 2 assists, so he had some good moments. I would play him more because it's a lost season, let's be honest. KBD, Keita Bates Diop, or Jop, he was at first the backup center, and I think they realized pretty quickly, like, yeah, this shit ain't working. So they played him 4 minutes. He had 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, but he was too small for his role. He couldn't do it. So I don't blame him, but it is what it is. Lonnie Walker played 29 minutes. He was 8 of 18, 21 points, had 2 turnovers, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. And he was a big reason as to why they got back in this game. Him and Schroeder played very well tonight. They were the reason that the Nets were in this game in the first place. And other guys like Mikal Bridges and, I don't know. I don't want to say Jalen Wilson because, once again, the expectations should not be that high. But Mikal Bridges, maybe even Claxton to a degree, could have played better. But, you know, it is what it is. For the Pistons, Jaden Ivey and Cunningham combined for like 70 points. They were out of their minds tonight. Nobody else really did that much. Thompson had 14, hit a couple threes. Duran had 12 points, 6 of 8. But I think the Pistons' size got to them tonight. I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, this would be a good night to play Claxton and Daron Sharp together. Then I forgot Sharp was out, so that was a shame. But this could have been a good night to try that experiment out, see if it worked. I want to see the points in the paint because I feel like the difference in points in the paint was crazy. No, it wasn't that. 56 points. That's a lot. 56, but the Nets had 42, so it wasn't like too crazy, but still, 56 is too many. Pistons' largest lead was 18 points. The Nets had a 6-point lead at one point. Yeah, it's just a loss that should not have happened. It's disappointing. I already saw a couple Nets fans on Twitter saying this is the last game they're watching this year. They're checking out. And, I'm not as motivated to watch this team these days, but I do find myself watching every game still, just about. I mean, there's sometimes I'm busy, but for the most part, like I'm trying to see, they play on Saturday at 7. Like I'll probably watch that game, but is it going to be like a main priority? No, but it'll probably be on in the background at least. They play Sunday too, a back-to-back against Cleveland. That's going to be rough. So the game's coming up soon. It's a road trip now. So it's at Charlotte, Jeff Peterson's Hornets. Then it's the next day is at Cleveland, then you're at Orlando, at Indiana. So 4 games in a row. A couple of those are tough games. If they don't beat Charlotte, they might lose all 4. So hopefully they could win on Saturday. It's just been a shitty year. There's, I think, like 19, 20-ish games to go. There's just not much of a reason to watch at this point. It's pretty sad. But I'm hoping they make the right decisions. I'm hoping that Sean Marks is gone. And once again, I understand it's not all his fault, but he has made plenty of mistakes himself. Like taking on Ben Simmons and getting bitched by Daryl Morey in negotiations is enough for me to be like, yep, I've seen enough. Get out. He's had 8 years. Like, how much more do we have to see? He's had 8 years here. So, once again, I'm good. I'm ready to move on. ready to rebuild. If they don't rebuild, I'm interested to see what they actually do. Because if they're not going to rebuild, what do? Like, do you just trade? Do you overspend on Donovan Mitchell if he's even available? Do you trade for Cat? Do you trade for Trae Young? Like, there's options out there potentially, but nothing that makes me go like, oh yeah, that's a great move for this team. That's going to put us over the top. Like, yeah, I would enjoy watching Mitchell or Trae Young in a Brooklyn Nets uniform, but I'm a guy that wants to play for championships. Like, I feel like making moves like that to have one of those guys as your best player, like, we've seen it already. Like, we've seen Trae Young as the number one guy. They did make the Eastern Conference Finals that one year. I feel like it was a bit fluky. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, Atlanta has fallen short like every year by a lot. Mitchell always fell short in Utah. They almost won that one series in the bubble. They were very close. I forget. That might have been in Game 7 too. I forget now. This is 4 years ago. But still, Mitchell has never had like amazing playoff success as far as I know. So I don't know. It's interesting. But if it's up to me, I'm saying rebuild. You know, you can get young, good players, and you have picks that belong to Phoenix and Dallas and I think Philly all through 2025 through 2029. So you have a lot of picks. You get a young core, maybe they're good, and you have those picks where if a star becomes available that you really want, you have the ammo to go and get that guy. I just don't see a point of keeping this team as it is. Like, imagine having to watch another year of this where it's Mikal Bridges as the number one guy. You know, Cam Thomas would probably still be here, which is fine. I don't mind Cam Thomas, but he'd be like your second best player. Claxton would probably still be here. It'd just be like a season from hell. Like, I just don't want to watch it. I would rather they get younger and get like Jalen Green type guys that are talented and might need like just new scenery and a new home that at least have a lot of upside and youth. I'd rather see a team like that get like 25 wins than to bring this team back next year and get like 35 wins. Like, I just, it's about the process for me. I want a good process here. I want a team that's thinking about the future and not just about now and trying to sell tickets. I don't care. So I hope to make the right decisions. I'm trying to think next time I'll talk to you guys. I'll probably wait until maybe Sunday night, but maybe not. If not, I'll probably just wait till after the game Wednesday. So probably after that Orlando game on Wednesday. So Wednesday night, I'll probably make a podcast. If not, I'll just wait till Indiana on Saturday. But yeah, that's going to do it. Hope you all enjoyed the video. It's a shame Ben Simmons is very injury prone, and I don't want to say his career's over. Like, I don't think he'll retire because he has another year left. So if I'm him, I'm coming back and collecting that money. But I don't know if he'll ever play again. I guess he will play, but if the Nets really like just send him home for the entire year, I guess it wouldn't be like nothing would surprise me at this point is what I'm trying to say. Like, nothing would. So Ben Simmons, lost cause, is what it is. Should not have traded for him. Whatever. Hopefully Sean Marks is let go. Team needs a new voice. He's made too many mistakes. And this team is in such a bad place right now. It just needs new life. And also, lastly, please rebuild. That's it. That's all I got. I'll talk to you guys next time.